Hi everyone. I'm so excited to see everybody's polls for the Gingham Quilt Along. I know they're still rolling in. You still got until Thursday night before I pick a winner. So hopefully this video about wovens might nudge you towards working with a woven. But if you're working with solids or anything else, or just regular quilting cottons, that's great too. The number one question I get from folks when they're kind of trying to decide what fabrics to use, besides just choosing colors, is there's a little bit of apprehension about what do I need to know about working with wovens. So the great news is working with wovens isn't that much difference, and in some cases not any different than working with your normal quilting cottons. So I'm going to go through the 4 main wovens that I use. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of other wovens out on the market that I'm sure act somewhat similarly. So I'm going to dive right in because my last few videos have gone a little bit too long. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Essex. Essex is by Robert Kaufman. It's a blend of linen and cotton. So shrinkage wise, it can shrink a little bit more. I'm not a pre-washer. I just let the extra crinkle. It doesn't seem to affect my quilts too much. So I'm happy to do it. One of the reasons I really like Essex, it has a lot of texture. It's the loosest weave of the 4 I'm going to talk about. It's definitely got more texture to it, I would say, than any of the other wovens. It has more color options too. There are a lot of different color options in the yarn dyed, in the metallics. There's also, they also have solid, if you want to do a solid to really match something in the yarn dyed section. But they also have homespuns. So I'm going to talk about homespuns first. The homespun Essex, and here's a sample of the homespun Essex. The homespun Essex, I really like. It's got a lot of texture, a little bit of variegation. You can see a little bit more of the light threads and then the gray threads going through. However, it's probably a more loosey-goosey, how's that for a technical term, or floppier of the fabrics. So I generally will spray this with spray starch and iron before cutting, just to cut down on the weave. The weave is a little bit looser than most, so to cut down on that amount of raveling. And as you can see, since this one's been, I've handled this quite a bit here. We'll roll it up and do that. As you can see, rolling up, I still have a little bit there, but that's not bad at all. Quilting cotton would do exactly the same if I were to do the same with that. So that's one tip to help with working with homespuns. Regular Essex. So regular Essex, when in the yarn dyed version, the colored threads go one direction and then the white threads go the other direction. So you've just got you've got the color there, but it's just a little more muted. And we kind of talked about that a little bit in getting that gingham effect or that halftone. You can get it in both, there's patterns, there's different stripes and plaids, or you can also get it in a solid. It comes in metallics as well. So you can get a solid that also has a metallic thread woven through with the white threads as well. So Essex is definitely one that, of the 4 that I'm showing, probably sheds the most or ravels the most. But again, using our pressing trick with just a little bit of spray starch and pressing before cutting, you're not going to have any problems with Essex. Crossweave is another really popular woven. It has, what I really like about Crossweave, it's got great weight to it. You've still got, the same woven texture, but it's definitely a tighter weave, I think, of just about any of the other. Maybe the Bonnie Camille Wovens come close, but it's got a really tight weave. It's got nice drape, but it's still really thick. So it's still a nice thick fabric. So it's one I like Crossweave. I've made a lot of quilts with Crossweave, and there are quite a few colors available in Crossweave as well. One of the things to note if you're ordering online, if you're trying to get a more solid Crossweave, make sure you pay attention. There's also variegated Crossweaves, which is still beautiful fabric, but may not work for what you're looking at. So make sure you pay close attention to, is it a regular Crossweave or is it a variegated Crossweave? This is probably my favorite woven for quilts, and that's Moda Chambray. So the one drawback of Moda Chambray is it doesn't have as many colors. The colors that it comes in are all in denim colorways. So black, gray, light blue, dark blue. I I generally use the black, the light blue, and the indigo. Those are the three that I use and that I carry in the shop. I like the drape. It's got good body. It's about the same weight as quilting cotton. It's not much heavier. I treat this, I don't pre-starch it. I don't do anything with it. I treat this exactly how I treat quilting cottons. So I don't do anything to prepare this any differently. The only thing I'm a little careful on is, and this is just good quilting practice in general, you can, press out of square if you're ironing instead of pressing. This will press out of square a little bit easier than quilting cotton. So if you're an ironer, not a presser, just be careful when you're working with this, when you're pressing your seams, to just take a little extra care and to press, not iron. But otherwise, I treat this just like my quilting cottons, and this is probably my favorite. So, and then last but not least, Moda designers have a lot of different woven collections, but the Bonnie Camille Wovens have just come out. These are absolutely fantastic. So these are quilting cotton weight. I would dare say even they've got a little more drape than quilting cotton. I treat them just like quilting cottons. I mix them with my quilting cottons, no problem. I think they do a really nice job. There's some that are yarn dyed means, or woven, means that the pattern comes from the weave, not from anything being printed on it. So they've got a lot of different pattern options. Sometimes in a woven collection, you don't have a lot of different pattern options. The Bonnie Camille Wovens have some great pattern options. There's diamonds, there's dots, there's stripes, there's wider stripes, there's gingham. So all different kinds of choices, so that you can, if you're trying to dip your toe in the wovens pool and you're not necessarily ready to go and use a regular woven for a full background or to do a whole quilt out of it, you've got a lot of fun prints here that you can mix with your regular quilting cottons. And all of the other ones also mix great with quilting cottons. It's just, if you were sticking your toe in the pool and you were really nervous about working with wovens, I would highly recommend either the Bonnie and Camille Wovens or the Moda Chambray, just to kind of stick your toe in the pool. It's also very easy to work with Crossweave and very easy to work with Essex as well. It's just a little bit different. The big difference between Essex and Crossweave is that you really want to make sure you take the time to use a spray starch. This is a spray starch that I use, the Mary Ellen's Best Press, and scent free, because one of the awesome things about getting older is apparently I'm allergic now. Like, I choke if I used to use the peaches and cream kind in this, and the Soak flatter spray, and now it makes me choke. So hooray old age. But the good news is this works great for me and doesn't trigger my allergies. But any spray starch would work great. Just spray, spray, press your fabrics, and then cut, just as you would with quilting cottons. I know a lot of people use some version of spray starch before using their before cutting their quilting cottons as well. So that tip, and again, another thing that's just good quilting practice is don't handle your fabric a ton. Don't move it from station to station to station. Try to handle it as little as possible. But again, that's just a good rule of thumb for quilting in general, not just with wovens. As you can see, here's an example where I've mixed, this is actually the Bonnie and Camille woven with a cotton and steel print and with a Bella Solid. And you can see there's no difference as far as me having to do anything special or different with mixing those fabrics. Here you can see I'm not the world's best piecer, so forgive any crooked seams, but you can see, is there a little bit of fraying here and there? Yeah, but is that anything uncommon? No, there's just as many white threads or navy threads from the cotton and steel fabric as there is from the Bonnie and Camille wovens. So if you're scared of wovens, don't be scared of wovens. I'm going to actually show a few examples here of some of the quilts. I'm going to put this down. The quilts that I've made with wovens, funny enough, white backgrounds make me way more nervous than woven backgrounds, because wovens hide all kinds of things that you may have done. So Winterville quilt, so obviously lots of pieces, done with Moda Chambray and had no problems at all. Sewing a village quilt. This is the Moda Chambray in light blue, so you can see, again, lots of little pieces, no problem at all. I mixed all kinds of, this quilt has quilting cottons, it has feed sacks in it in a few places. Yeah, I think there's some feed sack in it. Feed sack, chambray, no problem at all. This quilt actually is Charm Pack Churn Dash by Sterling Lavoski. If you don't have this pattern, I highly recommend it. I love how quickly it comes together, and it uses exactly one charm pack and some background. And oop, I've got it upside down. But this is made with Essex linen. It's got the embroidery in the middle, mixed it with quilting cottons, no problem at all. And this, you know, even my rule of not wanting to handle it a lot, I actually took this to a retreat and then brought it back home. So, I mean, you don't get more handled than traveling with with a cutout quilt. So, it had no problems there. This is Moda Crossweave, and I think it's graphite is the color. So this is from Lella Boutique's book, this pattern. I don't remember the name. I think it's Scrap Happy, but I could be wrong. Again, the chambray or the crossweave worked great mixed in with other quilting cottons. And last but not least, this patchwork swoon quilt is actually, and then it's got a focus block from one of Lori Holt's books, Farm Girl Vintage. But you can't really see here too well, but it's got the Moda Crossweave in black. This is patchwork swoon without the patchwork, just the pieces that would be patchwork are just big fields of orange here. But this quilt comes together super quickly. Again, patchwork swoon is one of my favorite quilts to make, especially without the patchwork. But mixing the quilting cottons, and this is Moda Crossweave in black, worked great. So if you have any questions about sewing with wovens, just shoot me a message, shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Take care.